thrilled to welcome Hall of Famer
Yes.
CC Sabathia to the show. How you doing today, CC?
Yeah, what's going on?
Listen, I told the fellas, I've been thinking about this a very long time, and I wanted to address you on this because this is a big deal, man. I'm confused as to why you didn't go into the Hall of Fame as a Milwaukee Brewer. Can you explain that to us? Because we confused. Like,
hey, CC, for the first 8 seconds of that question was like, are you kidding me? I come on here, you're going to hit me.
right off the bat. CC, they were scared.
He was going to pull one of these.
He was like, yo. They was like, dang, G-Bush, why you set him up like that? She didn't even know I was doing.
That is a good starting point, though. We had this discussion last week. No one here faults you. I think good baseball fans all completely understand. We all get it. Your biggest team accomplishment, and you were always a team first guy, came with the Yankees. And the bulk, you played more seasons in New York, and obviously that's where you've chosen to live. Have you heard much pushback on why not the C on the cap on the bust?
No, I haven't heard much pushback. I mean, I think that's, now at this point, most people look at me as a Yankee just because that's what they've seen, the second half of my career. For me, I mean, obviously you guys know how, special and, how much Cleveland means to me and my family. But for me, I played the longest in New York and, still choose to live here, still work for the organization. So I just thought it was a logical choice.
CC, I heard you on MLB radio with my guy CJ Nitkowski a couple of days ago. I can't remember exactly what day it was, but it was a fascinating conversation, talking about all the players that influenced you when you first came into the league in Cleveland. And for those in our audience who may not have heard that interview, could you talk about some of those guys when you were first coming up as a young player?
Yeah, it was, Dave Burba had a huge impact on me, Jason Beret. Matt Lawton, Ellis Burks, Ricky Gutierrez, all these different guys, a lot of position players though, but a lot of different guys that, just helped shape, who I became out on the mound and, the mentality that I had out on the mound. Just think about Alex Cora, Trot Nixon, all these different guys that I had a chance to play with. Aaron Boone even coming through Cleveland, for a couple years. Just the grit and the toughness that I feel like I was able to play with, I got from a lot of those guys and lessons that I got, in being a young player and just learning how to be a professional from Dave Burba, learning, bend but don't break, go out there and do whatever you can, to get a W. And that's all I ever cared about. I didn't really care about, my ERA or anything like that. It was just finishing the scoreboard and trying to get wins. And, I got that lesson from Burbs, really early in my career.
CC, the first time I ever saw you pitch, I was doing play-by-play for the Batavia Muck Dogs in 1999. You were playing, of course, for the Mahoney Valley Scrappers. And the first time I saw you when we went to Mahoney Valley, I was like, oh, my God, look at this guy. And then I saw you pitch, and you faced Marlon Byrd, who, of course, was a good big leaguer for many years. He was on our team at the time, and he was a really good player, and you knew he was going to be pretty good. But, man, seeing you face him, it was just different. Like, at A-ball, 90% of those guys are never going to make it to the majors, if not higher. But from the moment I saw you, and I'm not a baseball scout, but I was like, this guy's special, and I was right. And you were, and it was unbelievable. You stood out even then. Did you know that as a player, or do you not think that way?
What's crazy is that I think you always have to think that way as a player. You have to, believe in yourself. You have to believe. I remember when I made the team, the first year in 2001, I thought I should have made the team in 2000. I was a 19-year-old, kid that had no clue that you had to pitch 5 innings to get a win, but I'm thinking I should pitch in the big leagues. I think you have to, think, you have to, have those crazy lofty goals and, think of yourself that way. And yeah, I mean, it was weird, but, having a chance to play with Vic too so early and Mycera Stories and, those are two other big leaguers where you can see these guys are pretty good and they make you elevate your game. But I mean, yeah, I think you have to have that belief in yourself.
CC, what does it mean to go in as a first ballot guy? That distinction sort of separates. I mean, all the Hall of Famers are in a fraternity and they're all special. but the first ballot guys, particularly as high a percentage as you got, what distinction does that make for you?
I think it's something special. I mean, I think if you're a sports fan, you know how hard it is to get into the baseball hall, let alone on the first call. So I think the tide's changing a little bit, though. I think voters and writers are looking for a reason to put guys in the Hall of Fame instead of keep them out. So I'm grateful for that. I'm super excited. I know the list of guys that weren't first ballot Hall of Famers that probably had better careers than I did, but like I said, with the way baseball is going and the times are changing, I'm grateful and super excited and feel blessed to be able to go in as the first ballot.
CC, when do there's always that moment of realization that you do anything professionally where you're like, hey man, I'm pretty good at this. What was the moment of clarity where like, man, I actually, if I could keep doing this, I might be able to make it to the Hall of Fame? Do you kind of just put your head down and just let the work speak for itself? Or is there a point where you have some success and you say at that moment, like, oh yeah, I think I could actually make the Hall of Fame?
No, there was never a point in my career where I was like, I feel like I could make the Hall of Fame, but there was a point where I felt like I can stay in the big leagues. And that was around, 2004, 2005. I got to be 24, 25 years old, and I'm 4 or 5 years in, and I'm I can battle my way through a game. The first 3 or 4 years I was in the big leagues, I'm looking in the paper every day to see if I'm getting sent down. Even that first year, the first year I won 17 games, I would look in the paper every single day just to see what the guys in AAA were doing, to see how like my numbers are stacking up. So it was, it's just trying to survive, and for me, coming from where I came from, coming from Vallejo, it was literally just trying to, make a way for me and my family. So I was never ever, pitching to get to Cooperstown. It was just, trying to be the best that I could out on the field and trying to, win games and win a championship.
CC, I know you played against him for many years and you played as a teammate of him, for a little while there with the Yankees, but to go in with Ichiro, who stole your Rookie of the Year, will you give him a hard time or have you done so already for stealing your Rookie of the Year award?
Oh yeah, I've been killing him. All last week. And then he said it had to be a Cleveland writer that voted for me, which it was. So he would have had unanimous, just like he would have had unanimous Hall of Fame. But it's fun to be able to go in with Ichi and us be rookies the same year, retire the same year. Have a chance to play against each other, have a chance to play against each other for so long, play with each other in New York for a couple of years. It's going to be a fun summer. And we talked about, when I felt like I was established, I tell this story. I told this on the network the other day. In 2006, me and Carl were trying to figure out an out pitch for me. I was trying to, I was throwing like a big loopy curveball when I got the 2 strikes, and, I couldn't strike anybody out. And we went to the bullpen in Oakland, and he taught me how to throw a cutter, and it ended up being my slider. And I take it into the game my next start in Seattle, and Ichiro hit it out twice. So just goes to show you how good of a player he was. But that's kind of when, things shifted for me and I was able to, turn myself into a Cy Young pitcher.
See, that was an out pitch for Ichiro, too. Take it out.
Right?
Hey, CC.
Out in the right field seats.
Exactly. You mentioned that, and I agree with it, too, that voters these days are looking for more reasons to put guys in than they are to keep them out. But Kenny Lofton is a curious case for us. We poured over his career the day after the Hall announcement, and I think this is a guy that did enough. He was a two-way player. He averaged 48 stolen bases a season, and I know that the stolen base idea was kind of washed out of the game for a while, but they've realized smartly that of what it means. It's like, 48 extra doubles. Talk about the case for Kenny, and do you think he will eventually get in?
Yeah, I definitely think Kenny's a Hall of Famer. I feel like, somebody was telling me about the ballot, the year that he got on the ballot. I guess it was a stacked ballot, and, he kind of, the votes kind of got, pushed towards the other guys. But when you played with Kenny, you felt like he was a Hall of Famer. That was always my test. Like, You know, when I first came up, and you know, I walk in that clubhouse in Cleveland. You know, there were a couple of Hall of Famers in that clubhouse, and you felt it. It was Tommy I felt like it was a Hall of Famer. I felt like Robbie was a Hall of Famer. I felt like Omar was a Hall of Famer, and I felt like Kenny Lofton was a Hall of Famer. And you know, if you just look at Kenny's numbers, you put him up next to anybody's, and you know, like you said, with the stolen bases coming back into the game, and just a combination of speed and power, and you know, the athleticism that he had. Yeah, I think, you know, with the Veterans Committee, I think, you know, him, you know, I think Gary Sheffield, you know, I think you got to reevaluate all these different cases, and, you know, looking at, you know, trying to get guys into the Hall of Fame instead of trying to keep guys out of the Hall of Fame.
Right. So I see all the awards behind you, and I'm sure you have too many to even list. And let's take the World Series and now the Hall of Fame out of it, because obviously those are, you know, those are 1 and 2, I would imagine. Is there another award at any point in your career that means more to you than all of the others?
Yeah, actually, the 3 that are behind me is the Warren Spahn Award, and it's given to the best lefty in the league. But it's just all done by numbers. There's no voting. It's literally, you know, wins, ERA, you know, walks, strikeouts, and they tally it up, and you know, they give it to the best lefty. And I think I won it 2007, 8, and 9. So, you know, Kershaw's won it a bunch of times. David Price has won it. Obviously, Randy Johnson's won it a bunch of times. So, it's a cool award because I think it takes the voting out. It's just all stats, all numbers, and it's a cool little statue that you get too.
Nice.
Hey, man, listen, before I ask my question, I got to get to that. Yeah, man, your little setup back there is crazy. See them little lights up there? That make everything look crazy, bro. What I'm going to do when I get home, I'm going to tell my wife to put my china in there, YMCA trophies, and put a flashlight or something, because that's crazy. That just shine the light.
This is my wife's setup. This ain't even my setup. This is my wife's setup. So
See,
you're right. You got to go ask the wife.
That's 2 times. When you was in here, I asked you, your wife got you set up. I say, bro, what kind of cologne is that? You say, that's that Tom Ford. I went immediately home. Hey, babe. Yeah, we gotta go to Macy's immediately. We gotta get this unacceptable. My curve is not working. He just came through and shut everything down. Now, he just cut my shit.
He just took me back to 201.
Yeah, listen, I thought it was ready. He said, no.
Hey, CC wifey never steers us wrong.
Now his trophy.
Never ever.
Yeah, she's obviously a woman of great taste.
So, so, you know, obviously Stephen Vogt, he's one of the youngest, you know, managers in the game. Have you ever faced Stephen Vogt?
Oh, he did.
In the past? And do you recollect off the top of your head what kind of work you was giving him? Because, like, I don't think.
Nah, I don't. I'm for sure 1,000% I had to face him. I mean, I probably a bunch. Our careers, coincided for sure, but I don't remember.
1 for 8,
what
CC.
he did.
He was 1 for 8 against you.
Wow, a
1 for 8 with a single.
batting average.
You struck him out 3 times.
But you did hit him.
All right, that
And you
sounds
hit him with a
about right.
pitch
He's a
once.
lefty. He was a lefty hitter, so
Yeah.
you got to cut him some slack.
That's true.
Hey, CC, I know that we have to spend some time on this because I know how important it is to you. Every summer you come back to Cleveland and you put on a free baseball camp for kids. And I've had the pleasure of going out there a couple times. I was out there last year. Watching you interact with the kids was absolutely next level. It was obvious that as a lot of these guys put these on, they step in for 10 minutes, give a speech at the beginning, and they're gone. I watched you the entire time of the camp interact with the kids. You were having as much fun as they were. I think where I'm going with this is you told a story to me that day about a former camper who then became a major leaguer. And he addressed you at a time when everybody in the league knew, when CC's on the field, don't talk to him. Tell that story if you would. I think it really encapsulates the spirit of why you do this, and also it shows kind of the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, no, I mean, having a chance to come back every summer and teaming up with colleague Giving and having a chance to team up with Matt Colleague and Tim Kleppert and do the camp every year in Cleveland is awesome. For us, the Pitching Foundation, and colleague Giving. Having a chance to have the field named after me, is always awesome for me. And for me, giving back is something that's personal and not just like you said, giving a speech, but really spending time with the kids because having a chance to meet Dave Stewart when I was a kid, it changed my career. It changed the way I thought about baseball players. I got a chance to meet him at 9 years old in my Boys and Girls Club, and not only did I want to be him out on the field, but I wanted to be him in the community. I want to go and spend time with kids and have that effect on kids. And it started me on a career of philanthropy. And in 2003 I started doing my baseball camps out in Vallejo, and I've done them every year. I didn't do it last year, but I'm back to doing it this summer. And 2019 I was out on the field playing catch in Toronto, and like you said, people know when I'm out on the field, especially if you're on the other team. Most guys never came and approached me. Even if I had friends on the other team, I wouldn't talk to them till after the game. We would go to dinner. But it was this kid came running across, big guy, came running across the field, and he goes, "Hey, CC, can I talk to you for a second?" And at first I kept walking and pretend like I didn't hear him, but then he stopped me, and I turned around, and it was Rowdy Tellez, and he was like, "Hey, I just want to say thank you. As a kid, I went to your camps. Growing up, I went to 2 of your camps, and it really changed me as a baseball player." And for me, it was just a full circle moment. It brought me back to that 9-year-old kid seeing Dave Stewart in my Boys and Girls Club, and the reason why we do our camps and the reason why we started Pitch In, and all of the volunteers and all of the hours and everything that we put into all the stuff that we do. It was worth it just for that one interaction. I always say, if we change one life with everything that we do, with everything that we've done, in the 21 years that we've had the organization, it's all worth it. And in that moment, it was.
I got goosebumps when you told me that story the first time, and I got them again this time. That really is what it's all about.
It is cool.
Hall of Fame person too, CC.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
We could use more people like CC Sabathia, who not only Hall of Fame at what they do, but Hall of Fame. Have you even thought about your speech yet?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's and I think
You
people
cannot
that
let
know
your
me,
wife write that for you.
Yeah, somebody's gonna write. Somebody's gonna have to write it.
Right.
But nobody's gonna be able to get up there and deliver it for me. That's the problem. So I got to get on it pretty soon, and I want to get something done pretty early so that I don't forget anybody. I make sure that I'm thanking the right people, in all three organizations, but really the right people in that Cleveland organization, and just make sure that I get this thing right. So I want to get it done early so that I can practice it, get through it. I'm a big crier. I will cry at the podium, but I got to make sure that I can get through it.
I also heard Tom Hamilton recently on MLB Radio, and who's going into the Hall, of course, with CC, which is really cool. And Tom was asked specifically, I don't know if you heard this, CC, but Tom was asked, beyond the obvious, what makes CC Sabathia special? And Tom said, just ask anybody that's played with CC. He is the greatest teammate you're ever going to have. And I would think that there could be no bigger compliment than somebody saying you're the best teammate they've ever had, because it seems like everybody feels that way, CC.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the best compliment. I mean that's the only thing I ever really cared about. But that came from getting drafted in that organization in Cleveland, and that was something that was stressed us. That was something that was important to us. Was being a good teammate and making sure that you're accountable and picking up the guy next to you, and that was something that I took to heart, and something that even as in the minor leagues, when everybody's kind of fighting and clawing against each other, but you can find a little bit of solace in being a teammate. Like I said, me and Victor Martinez are still close. Some of these guys that you battle, through the minor leagues with, if you believe in that philosophy, you can find lifelong friendship. So it was something that I carried through my whole career. Wanted to be a good teammate and be just a fierce competitor, and it ended me up in Cooperstown.
G joked about the Brewers earlier, and that was funny. But I was just thinking about it. What you did with the Brewers in that short period of time was one of the most remarkable runs I've ever seen a pitcher have. And I've been obsessed like Jay with baseball for 50 years. I mean, I know obviously it was a small part of your career, but that was one of the most incredible runs in modern baseball history.
You know what's crazy is that as good as I was that second half in Milwaukee, that if you look at the first half in Cleveland, I was so bad. The
You were
first
like 2
half
and
in
6
08,
or something.
it was horrible. Like I was really bad. Like it was unbelievable. I couldn't get anybody out.
What changed?
It was so it just had to like the season had to even out. You know what I'm saying? Like it was one of those things where that was going to happen if I would have stayed in Cleveland too. So it was just one of those runs where, I mean, every time I felt like I picked up the ball, I felt like I was going to go out and give the team a good chance to win. But if you look at everybody talks about that second half. You look at the first half I had, you know, it was the season. It had to even out.
Yeah, I think you were something like 2 and 6 when they traded you. I know you got to go.
But it was like
50.
I had like a 5 though.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know. It was odd. It was like you flipped a switch. I don't know if you needed to change the scenery or what, but it just when you went to Milwaukee, you became Superman again. I know you got to go here in just a couple of seconds, but quickly before we leave, I know you said you're doing some work for the Yankees. Have you ever given any thought to maybe one day being a pitching coach or a manager? It just seems like you have so much to give back to the game.
Yeah, I mean, but it takes a lot of time to do that. You know, every single day being on the baseball schedule. Now that I'm not, you know, in baseball like that involved, you know, to on the field, I don't know if I can ever get back to that schedule where you're playing 162 and, you know, 185, 188 days. Like it's a crazy summer. I enjoy going to Europe in the summertime. I enjoy going to Italy. I enjoy playing golf in Tahoe and all these different things that, you know, I wasn't able to do. If you think about it, when you play baseball, you don't have a summer you don't have summer off,
right?
Ever. So I didn't have a summer off from 1998 until 2019. Like I need some summer vacations for a little while before I even think about going back
that's
to being
fair.
out on the field.
But you can only get so many vacations in and so many rounds of golf. If you ever get bored, Carl can't work forever, CC.
That's true. That's true. I can give Carl some relief.
All right, I don't think you get many arguments for that here.
Last thing real quick, CC, before you go. Over a 200 career batting average as a pitcher, which is great. You hit, I believe, 3 home runs, right? Now,
yeah, I hit 3.
If you had been a hitter,
it was higher until I got old, man. My knee got bad.
Yeah.
I wanted to end with like 250.
I mean, you know, there's plenty of players now that don't hit 200 and they're hitters. but if you had been a hitter, do you think you could have been a big league hitter? Like, were you good enough when you were younger?
No, absolutely not. It's super hard to hit, man. I mean, that's a completely different life. And you know, the times when I got a chance to hit and the times when I got a chance to play in the National League, I think I pitched better because you realize how hard it is to actually hit. You know, hit a baseball. So I don't know. That it's tough to be a hitter.
Thanks, CC.
CC, thanks so much. And congratulations, man.
Yeah.
You've earned it. Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.